Brothers and sisters, welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm joined with the best TCG Yu-Gi-Oh player in the world, Ruben Penaranda.
What's up, Nash? How are you doing today, man?
Okay, so today, with my fellow companion, Ruben Penaranda, we're gonna go over the most interesting games in the YCS Providence. Tavion against Car Maniga.
Yeah, and I know we, after the event, we have a little more information on both of their decks, considering Carl also ended up topping. So we'll probably take some moments to like pause and either talk about like decisions he's making based on his deck choices, or just kind of like making inferences based on what we already know, what cards he has in his hand or what plays he's going
It's actually super interesting. I wanted to showcase this game because I think this game will actually shake and change the format. I think what was showed during this game is something that will change the format entirely. Like, because I don't think anyone was thinking what Carl was thinking. I think it was head on the coup.
And this is something I talked about with actually a friend, Dominic Couch, at the event. He talked to Carl about the decks they were playing. And I think both of them together were the ones that came up with the tech choices that they decided to play in their deck. And like Nesh was saying, I definitely feel like it's going to revolutionize the way at least pure Ryziel gets played.
You think only
the
pure?
The draw is interesting, especially considering it didn't look like Tavion had any more hand traps in his hand. I don't know if I'd want to just like blanket start with it.
Yeah.
Especially if like you're playing against like Ryziel, so you'll have times to drop it before they can commit to an extra deck summon or on an ice as well.
I don't think respecting talent makes a whole lot of sense. I don't even think talent is good in the main deck right now.
I think even when Talents was at 3, most of the time it just probably wasn't even correct to shotgun it because certain decks have the ability to brick and you don't want your opponent to start off, for example, a card like Bonfire being able to search the appropriate target to beat the Molcharmies.
Okay, so extra effect, and he's gonna search a sword. I mean, this is just the standard rotation. Special summon sword is gonna get the ice. Like the same concept, in my opinion, applies also to cards like Lancia. Yes, I know that like Malice can play around Lancia, but I think trading a card for a card, especially against a deck like Malice that does not have a whole lot of starters, it's correct to not shotgun it.
Oh, I agree. As a Malice player and playing out the YCS, that deck myself, I really enjoyed when my opponents would shotgun Lancia because it makes me have to make my decisions a lot earlier in the turn. So I don't have to be like, oh, what happens if they have this? I'm like, I can keep my underground instead of it being a dead card. Now I know it's guaranteed follow-up, and I can use the rest of my hand. Or like if you use a Gold Sark, for an example, your opponent can just activate Lancia and you lose the card right away. So different things like that I feel like are really important.
We see Carly are going for a very not standard line that like this line became standardized after the release of Star. Special summon Star with Eyes that will allow to set the field spell, and then XYZ into a detonator to attach back the Twins of the Eclipse that was dumped by the X. This line became standard after. Usually here we would try to protect our duo drive going for a Photon Lord, but now it doesn't matter anymore because of Star that's able to cheat out the field spell, and then we can establish the detonator and protect it still by Impermanence and Baylor cause of still detonator but also cross. But here I think he would probably go for a detonator in order to protect and just detach from detonator.
Yeah, Star Ryziel, people don't realize it being just one card and one copy of the card in the Ryziel main deck actually makes a huge difference on how the deck's being played, how it plays into boards and like through disruptions, because now you're not solely relying on your duo drive being like that choke point to get you follow-up, to get you recursion, to get you an additional +1 through a draw and a negate. Being able to access that through your like main deck monsters going down the line, as you like to say, with X is really, really valuable because it allows you to use key cards in the pure deck like Plugin or like Plasma Hole, so you can add additional layers to your end field.
Yeah, here we see he gets Plugin and Node. Just
and what is that? 3 Charmies in Carl's hand. So I think he probably chose to do one of the greediest lines just because he realized the strength of his hand was based around Bonfire itself. So he wanted to see how big he could make his field. It looks like he had double Meows Perulia or double Meows Fua in his hand. Yeah, pitching one of those. Interesting. Okay, seeing it down in the main deck of Tavion. I knew some people were doing that at the YCS, and I think it was an okay choice. I just feel like they were much better hand traps that could be
I
used.
actually do want to talk about the bell, because I think the bell was a sort of counter of a deck choice that was made by a couple of players.
Yeah, that could be true. It helps against Bystials since the pure Mitsu deck relies a
Yeah.
lot more on the graveyard effects. So in that aspect of it, I think it's a good hand trap, and it's also one that your opponent's not going to play around. So it has the ability to just shock them and put them in situations they're not prepared for, instead of necessarily blowing them out because it's so impactful. Blowing them out because they weren't prepared almost has the same effect.
We see that he attached the plasma hole to the duo drive, then shuffles two at the bottom in order to draw one with the cross, and now we go for the third XYZ. We also gave an extra material to duo drive, so we gain a negation from cross, so we can use at the fully of his fully potential the detonator. And now the third XYZ. I'm curious to see what he wants to summon. I don't exactly remember what he summons here. Might have been a Baguska. Baguska here, it's not bad. Yeah, it was actually a Baguska. I don't think it's a bad choice. I like it actually a lot, because like your opponent cannot really deal with this Baguska with the Dryziel part of the deck. And the Mitsurugi part of the deck needs an exact card. He needs to play Dynamo.
There's also stuff you can do since Plasma Hole is underneath your Baguska. If they ever out it, you can Plasma Hole into your own Eclipse Twins with the Duo Drive and the Baguska, and then Detonator pop it. So then you can get your Baguska back online.
Yes.
If you ever need to, or with Nibiru, different things that the pure Ryziel deck gets to take advantage of because of cards like Plasma Hole. And those are things that people probably aren't as prepared for, considering we're coming from a format where it was mostly Fiendsmith Ryziel, so you wouldn't be dealing with a card like Plasma Hole. Yeah, he's still... Wow, it looks like Carl drew another Charmy as well, because he still has 3 of them in his hand.
I think it's super interesting, the approach of the Charmies. I actually love Charmies right now. I felt like Entraps during this format were doing close to nothing against a deck like Malice. Like having a Veiler most of the time.
Like, at any of the combo decks, I feel like just one hand trap, sometimes even 2, is just not enough unless it's a Floodgate hand trap. And that's where I agree with you. I think the Charmies did a good job at like balancing Yu-Gi-Oh in a way where you can get punished if your opponent deck builds appropriately. So when they give you a lot of draws, like Carl just did for Tavion under Fua, if his deck was built with board breakers instead of hand traps, that +3 he just got for comboing probably could have ended the game. But since he was drawing into cards that will further be actions from his hand, like Bell, possibly other Charmies, possibly cards like Imperm that don't trade as much into a fully established board, I feel like that could be something that needs to be thought about more when it comes to deck building, when people are playing the 6 Charmies, the 7, the 9 even, in their main deck.
Tavion playing the pure Mitsurugi strategy, it's something that I took in consideration, especially for this event. I theorized over the pure Mitsurugi. It's an interesting deck, can respect the Charmies very well. Like we can see from Tavion perspective on how he approached this format. He decided to play like a sort of, mid-range deck that can play very well into Charmies. I have only one issue with this deck. It feels like a worth pure Fiendsmith deck. And the reason why I say that is because if you Ash like a Requiem, then your Lacrima will be able to put you back in rotation. If you Ash instead a Mitsurugi Saji that was special summoned and then tributed by an Abakiri, then you are out of rotation for several turns if you don't draw another piece of engine.
And I agree with you. I think the pure Mitsurugi deck is a new deck that's going to be introduced to our format, similar to Blue Eyes, where it's low to the ground, its power level lies in its ability to play multiple turns in the longevity of the deck, not necessarily establishing up 6, 7, 8 interruptions, except instead it's going to be like, I'm going to have a hand rip, possibly a negate with the trap card, I'm going to blow up your field, and then like an IP play into either Dynamondo or SP. And I think that's like a really cool approach, considering people thought this was going to be a tier 0 format with just Malice taking everything over. And it's really nice to see a deck like this being able to at least compete, if not keep up with all these tier 1 combo decks.
Or I think that we both agree about like the Malice being the best deck right now, but the fact that he's being so respected makes people think that it's actually not the best deck. But like the thing about Malice is the fact that being the best deck makes also it not being the best deck, because people are literally deserving 12 slots, 9 slots in the side deck just for this deck.
Yeah, and I think that's something super important you just brought up. Some deck can be the best deck of the format, but not the best deck for the tournament. And I think that's something you were highlighting there, because like you said, I do agree that Malice is the best deck of the format, but looking back, maybe it wasn't the best choice for Providence because people were siding 9, maybe even 12 cards for the matchup when they have 3 Fua, 3 Meows, 3 Lancia, 3 Chaos Hunter. I played against Yassine and he ironwalled me. Like, all these cards
Ironwalled you. Ironwalled.
Yeah. No, that match was crazy. Game 1, he Lancia'd me when he started. Game 2, he Ironwall Lancia'd me. And Game 3, he searched Lancia. It was a wild game.
Ironwall you sounds crazy. This is basically the Kaiju in engine.
Oh, that card's actually crazy as much as I feel like we dismissed it as a community, especially considering the pure Mitsu deck. It gives you a lot of random answers to cards, and I feel like it's going to be one of the few cards that gives Tavon a chance in this sort of situation.
I think I agree, because this card being able to tribute an aim in hand makes such a huge difference, because we were talking about how your Mitsurugi Abakiri actually cuts you, like if you get ashed on the Sagi that was special summoned and tributed by Mitsurugi Abakiri, then you cut yourself from engine for several turns if you don't draw another piece, right? But this card alone is able to trigger the Abakiri multiple times, which in my opinion makes it worth in the main deck of the deck.
It's just regular, like, individual spot removal for a bunch of cards. Like, it doesn't have to be the best out for them or the cleanest, but the fact that it's an in-engine searchable out, I think makes it so much better than any other card that could be in its place.
Yeah, this is Mitsurugi no Wuzu. Okay, so let's proceed with the game. Yeah, the Kaiju and also the ability to tribute and make your engine rolling makes so much sense. We cut this card as a community. We thought that this card was bad, but maybe not in the pure Mitsurugi. I think it's a super interesting card. I think it actually makes sense in the deck of Tavion. It gets your engine rolling and is able to out like those weird situations with a Baguska. I don't think I saw from Tavion. We're gonna talk about a very specific scenario, because I think Tavion could have summoned a very strong card here. And it's something that he might still have in the extra deck, but probably banished it with Pot of Extravagance, and it's Dynamondo. I think Dynamondo in this deck is such a good card. Like, especially right here, a Dynamondo would clear the Detonator.
It feels like that card was created for this deck, honestly. Yeah. Like, people thought it was good in the Voiceless Voice deck. No, you are crazy if you think it was good in the Voice. It is insane in this deck. Like, the ability to just get yourself back Habakiri every turn is so good. It spins a card as you're clearing fields. Like, having to use your prayers and not search one for follow-up and having, like, literal access to it through your extra deck is really good. Having a really strong IP target that's not SP, but allows you to continue using your engine at the same time. So strong. Yeah, I think he's forcing 2 responses out of here, getting that popped. I think that's fine. Tavion has Droll Ash. I think he has the fusion spell. Or not the fusion spell.
But like
the pre-prep target.
I don't think I like this play.
And then this is something that we didn't even talk about before, that this is a game where Carl gave Tavion 3 additional cards to the Fua. Not even just like a 1-for-1. He gave him a +3.
Yeah.
And he's still in a strong commanding position. And he resolved an extravagance. So like Tavion was up, what is that, 3? He was at almost 9 or 10 cards at the start of his turn because he belled Carl.
Yeah. But the thing is that you are playing a mid-range deck. A mid-range deck have only a certain amount of pushes. And Carly is basically capitalized on that.
He's knowing which interactions he needs to shut off, and I think this is a very important skill to have when you're not playing the strongest deck in the format, because sometimes you won't have infinite interruptions, and you'll need to know exactly which ones to use when.
Yeah.
And now we see the ice in Carl's hand, so as long as he gets another turn, it really looks like the game is over. Because this Kuzanji, I think, is not really going to do anything. He has
Not really.
Prayers, Astral. Like, I don't know what card he can add back that really, like,
I
gives
think
him a
it's
chance.
Futsu is not bad here, actually. Futsu is bad, like Futsu is fine. I would prefer probably to be an Abakiri, but Futsu is fine here. I don't see any issue with that. And
Is
now
there
pop
any
it.
world where you just like try and not do anything and put your opponent on having no? No, you can't even do that because if
You
he
can't
just
even do
overlays,
that.
yeah. I was trying to see if there's any way you can just try and put him on no follow up, but
He's chaining now. Interesting. This doesn't even work, right? This doesn't work.
it's not gonna work because the Baguska is gonna be summoned in defense position.
Yeah.
I just think Tavion is taking a little bit to like finally realize everything that's happened. Because if he brings back the Amino, it's just gonna be negated. The Baguska is gonna be live. It doesn't look like there's really much that can be done.
And now he has to, I mean, probably summon another 4. Like summon the 4 from the graveyard. Pay 800, summon the 4 from the graveyard. I think that's what he's trying to do. Or maybe summon the Ame, no?
I think you have to summon the Amino just in case Carl decides to summon Detonator instead of Baguska.
Yeah.
So this forces him to put the Baguska on the field.
Okay, and now he has to use Mirror though. So Tributed, use Mirror, shuffle back, and we see the pre-prep in his hand.
Dynamondo, spin the Baguska, and then he has a pop. And then he has a field wipe on his opponent's turn with 2 hands. That really doesn't seem terrible.
That does not seem terrible whatsoever, right? Because then you have a pop, you can clear. That seems a very good play. But now the thing is, do we have it in the extra deck because we resolved an extravagance?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, and that would be something only Tavion knows, and his playlines could very much have been like directed because of what he banished off of extravagance. Like, this is also a type of deck that could be playing cards like Typhon, and that's something I was thinking about earlier, that maybe it could have been cute to just summon a Typhon, bounce it, and try and leave him with as little cards as possible. If you have, like, Prayer's access as well.
Not a huge fan of Typhon in this deck, because you cannot really, like, grind with the Typhon and Prayer.
Because
you probably still, yeah, you probably still play Typhon, but I'm not a huge fan of summoning it.
I mean, Tavion is doing a great job at working through what the end field was. Unfortunately, Carl didn't have many hand traps to help insulate his board because he did end up drawing 4 Charmies. So it could have been very, very different if those were any other cards.
Yeah. I think what actually matters now is, like, he probably has to go, like, even an SP works here. An SP actually is not bad. An SP for field spare cross, I would probably go for cross there. I wouldn't even banish the Baguska.
At this point, you don't have much plays past the SP, so you just want him to put the Baguska in attack position, and if he keeps it there in defense position, that's fine, because you just try and get another turn.
And Tavion passed it here. Oh, that's rough.
Yeah, I mean, it's just looking too hard to come back. An X off the top, like, even just, like, seals the deal, because you get your Detonator back. You don't have to, like, literally do anything else. I mean, like, since we know he has ice in hand, this draw is really not going to do too much.
Yeah.
But Tavion's just trying to do his best to keep his opponent off of as many cards so he can get another turn.
This is basically game, because we see the trap in the graveyard, right? So any XYZ, switch in attack, enter in battle, phase attack, 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 use the trap, summon Twins of the Eclipse in this game.
Yeah. I don't feel like it's hard to establish game from here, but Carl's probably just making sure he makes no mistakes.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Especially, this is a long game 1, so this is one you definitely don't want to lose, especially going into game 3. Yeah. Like, with 2 decks that are very mid-rangey, you don't want to just come down to life points.
Okay, special summon next. I don't know what it dumped. I don't think it makes, like, it doesn't make a difference.
He just dumps Eclipse Twins to get his Detonator back, and then...
Yeah. Yeah. That works. Yeah. Eclipse Twins,
Yeah.
summon back Detonator, summon attach. Now he has now he's insulating his OTK. Tavian is only at 72, just switching attack the duo drive and it's game because Kusanagi has 400 defense.
Yeah.
It's
and then like he has ice in his hand too if he really wants to commit another body. Like he's not in nib range either because there is one unknown in Tavion's hand.
Yeah, he can just normal summon it just to make sure. I don't think it makes. Yeah, you can just normal summon the full. Yeah. I mean, at least we have some utility for that.
At least it's doing something. One of the best decks to make use of their Charmies is a rank 4 deck.
The extra deck, there is like in Karl extra deck we see two cards that are Banshee, and we saw some lists on Banshee, but not really on the Nemesis stuff. Ooh, special summon ice is nice. And then the other card is Toad. I like Toad. I think it's like the way that is being used it in Karl's deck in order to ensure follow-up is spotted, because yes, this deck can push a lot, but it cannot always guarantee follow-up, and what the Toad does is try to guarantee follow-up, recycling the sharks.
I think Toad is a really good card past turn 1. Just also looping it off of Eclipse Twins gives you enough resources to push every turn, something I realized playing against this version and playing this version pre-ban list, but nonetheless with Toad in the extra deck, is that Toad with Eclipse Twins gives you follow-up very similar to having Lacrima and Requiem in your graveyard, where every turn you have 1 to 2 pushes without having to draw a card off the top of your deck, so it's always going to give you a chance to beat through your opponent's engine as long as you continue grinding.
Yeah, I have been really enjoying this game, to be honest. Like, that was such a good game. Let's move to game 2.
There was a lot of like decision trees made there. That game could have honestly gone either way if it wasn't 2 high-level players playing and trying to just sit there and make sure all of their decisions were the appropriate ones.
So, game 2. We are gonna talk in a second about how Karl decklist is gonna shake the format. In my opinion, his stake was super good. We are also gonna show the decklist. I found some issues with this deck, and also I heard that he was not really, people were not really trusting him on the stake. I see a lot of value in his stake. I wish he was eating me up with that.
I think his take can be appropriate tournament to tournament. I think it is not necessarily correct every tournament, but it can be correct at every tournament, if that makes sense, depending on the format for it.
Here is the thing, right? I can see the Eschatos being side, but I think Protoss is such an insane card right now. Like, Protoss, in my opinion, is the best card in the game, if you think about it. Like, you call Dark, even under Champions, if you know that you are against the Malice, they cannot play. You call Dark against Mitsurugi, they cannot play. If you have an in-engine piece that can banish during the Ryzel combo, and then you can establish a Protoss, that is the best. In my opinion, it's the best deck in the room if you can do that. Okay, reveal 6 with Prosperity, and we get an Abakiri.
Yeah, and it looks like Karl's hand is not very good. It's looking like 2 Charmies, Called by the Grave, Ash, Spooky Dogwood. And Spooky Dogwood was actually the one I thought you were referring to, because after talking to Karl and some people in his testing group, they were saying that Karl felt he needed a hand trap in his deck that he could draw off Charmies to guarantee he lived another turn. And he said that the only one that did that was Spooky Dogwood.
It's such an interesting take.
I understand where it's coming from, where it's like some decks really do feel like they only need 1 more turn. And in a deck like his, where you could just set up a bunch of follow-up, he has all the Charmies. I think he only plays Ash, a couple Nibs in his deck, and that's it. So like if you push into the Charmies, if he draws Spooky Dogwood, you're gonna be like, wow, I can't go for game now, but then I also can't establish the best end field because then I have to give him a bunch of draws. But my one issue with that take is if your opponent does know that your only real cards that you can draw off the Charmies or something like Spooky Dogwood that's not stopping your opponent from advancing their game state, they could just play into it and be like, yeah, you may have a bunch of life points, but you will never actually win the game. And I will just sit here and beat you down for 8,000, 12,000 points every turn until you concede. Because that's happened to me when I've taken that approach before.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I can see that. But like his take, like I think what you like, because even in my testing, right, when I was playing against the Malis and I was charming them because I had to pass, they would OTK me really quick. Nothing I can do about it. Nibiru doesn't work. Baylor doesn't work. Impermanence doesn't work. Like it's literally
Impulse
crypto
usually doesn't work either because they can just put Lingery-Bow on the field. So like there really isn't a lot of cards to stop the Malice OTK, especially because Crypto just beats the Bystial if like that's your one stop.
Yeah. So the only way to actually survive in that situation would be with Spooky Dog, which now I understand, or at least when I saw it, I understood why Carl was doing that. Like it's someone that definitely studied the format, that saw the flaws in the format, that decided to take an approach. Like this is a person that, in my opinion, tested a lot to arrive to such conclusions.
Like, that's something that you won't get to a conclusion of if you don't put an infinite amount of hours finding out the exact reason why you're losing. Because sometimes you're like, oh, he drew X card, but sometimes it's like it wasn't a specific card, it was the fact that I just didn't have a turn. And how do you fix that?
And
I think he chose the best way to do it in his opinion, and clearly his results showed.
Yeah. So we see now from Tavion perspective what happens when Tavion gets ashed. And this is the problem that I was explaining before. When you play pure Mitsu and you don't have actually a way to, like, you don't have, even if you have multiple engine, if your multiple engine don't include a quick spell or the ritual spell, they actually don't do anything.
And then this is something that I feel people were making big mistakes of at the tournament. They were ashing, I call it Hibachi. I don't know what it's called.
Habakiri,
it doesn't matter. Monster. But yeah, it's very important to stop Sanji in the graveyard just to get them out of rotation and make them waste the name that gets them the ritual spell.
Because they can always normal Saji add the ritual spell. And then from there they can actually keep playing. But if they have to use Abakiri, tribute Saji, they don't have a Saji anymore. They either actually are draw the ritual spell or the quick spell, or they are out of rotation.
Or they have to have pre-prep. And like, it makes it so your opponent has as little answers to your board as possible. Yeah. And we saw like, the Fool got ashed, and for what? He got ashed on his Sanji and had to pass turn, just getting follow-up. And we see Tavon has Droll in hand as like his one defensive card. So it could be enough in his eyes, and us seeing Carl's hand, we know that with the Call by the Grave, if he drew into any play, it's not going to be enough. Activating Meows on his own turn, just in case, to play
around prayers, and also in order to make the Eschatos live. The Eschatos here is such a huge card.
And this is something that's really hard to prepare for mid-tournament, especially if you don't know your opponent's playing this. Tavon probably could have thought about something maybe on Res, just to be like, oh, he's going to summon one of the Arch Nemesis cards. But if you don't expect it, just this body being on the field, it can't be destroyed by card effect. It's, I believe, 3k?
Yeah, 3k, 2500 defense, yeah. It's basically the opposite stats of Protoss.
Yeah, so it's just a big body, can't be destroyed by card effects, and now Tavion's not going to be able to play unless he has an infinite impermanent set.
I think he has prayers. You can tribute prayers in order to not let him call a reptile. So he has to call, so Carl is forced to only call dragons. That should work out, I think. You do it.
And that's something that you would only know if you've played against Protoss for a while. Oh, Solemn Judgment. That was a big Solemn Judgment.
Very expensive too. Set call by from Carl.
But it's also really worth it in that situation because it seemed like he was bricked, so you're just stopping him right away.
Yeah. So normal summon Saji puts back Tavion in rotation.
Yeah, this Saji that he got back off Kusanagi, I think is going to apply too much pressure. Us knowing Carl's last two cards, I don't think either of them are really going to make too much of a difference unless Tavion plays too hard into the Called by the Grave.
Yeah, no, I feel that.
Especially, he drew a strike off the top of his deck. It's not looking like Carl's going to be able to get any card.
Not looking too hot. It's not looking too hot. Okay.
Yeah, and this feels something similar to what a lot of the games this format are coming down to, where one person just doesn't draw enough engine, and one person draws enough engine to just get back to their turn. And now it just feels so overwhelming. You see 2 cards facing down 7 or 6, and it's just, you start thinking to yourselves, what possible card is at the top of my deck that wins me the game? And once you start realizing there's no individual card, you're like, okay, can I magically put Desires into my deck so it's at the top?
And now Carl uses Spooky Dogwood, which is the card that we were talking about before. It will survive. It will definitely survive. But the Spooky Dogwood only actually really works if it's joined by a Chammy. Otherwise, accompanied by a Chammy. Otherwise, it's just a -1. I don't, like, life points don't matter in this game.
Yeah, they never did. Like, life points only matter when you hit 0. And that's something I feel like people don't realize when you just look at the game for face value.
Fabian instead actually decides to not push. That is interesting in my opinion. Decides not to push.
I think that's okay, just because I'm pretty sure he searched Purification.
Yeah.
He had Strike Set,
Yeah.
and then he has Omnino for the top deck.
Yeah.
So realistically, there's no way he can beat 3 pseudo Omni Negates with 2 cards.
Yeah. Also, I really think that the judgment was spotted by Tavion on the summon of Eschatos, because that Eschatos was trading a lot. That Eschatos was trading.
That would have been insane. It can't be outed by prayers either, and that's another cool thing that shows Carl put a lot of time into the format. The Nemesis cards are actually good into boards because they're hard to remove from the field. So when you're able to establish one of them after cracking your opponent's field, it gives you that extra turn back that he's been trying to buy back with the way his deck list is built, since your opponent can't kill you, since maybe they can't use their Cybers or their Reptiles, or maybe not their Darks, you know, depending on if it's Protoss or Ashantos.
I don't know if I really like Ashantos. I like a lot Protoss. My issue with Ashantos is, yes, you buy a turn, but then you have to kill. With Protoss instead, even if you don't kill, you can lock him under several turns under Dark. And I think that's a huge difference, because the Ashantos needs the type on the board, right? Reptile. If there is no Reptile on the board, you're not locking me anymore. So I don't care anymore.
I think part of it was that Carl was looking for more outs to it, and I believe Protoss is at 1, not at 3.
Protoss is at 1, unfortunately.
So he could just be playing more copies of the big ones, like we were saying, they're better to hard draw, because I was thinking he could play more Nemesis Flags. As we'll go over his deck list, he does side deck a copy of it. But I think it could have been better if he side decked multiple, but like we know, Raziel doesn't banish as many cards, so it being possibly Protoss or Ashantos loses some value, since you can't reliably resolve it as often from your hand. And this is something interesting. It looks like Carl kept in some of his Charmies. Okay, so he made Tavion start.
Carl made Tavion start because he's playing so many Chammies, and also the Protoss, the Ashantos. We see Tavion starting with a very strong pre-prep. And now here is the thing. Is Tavion gonna play into Chammies or not? This deck actually, the Tavion deck, the Pure Mitsurugi, plays actually very well around Chammies.
It makes the Charmies look terrible because they're all just upstarts at best. And like you could give them a +1 to end on your God field if you want a ritual from the deck and summon IP.
Now Fua on the Abakiri, second
chain second Fua.
Amazing.
Okay.
But Tavion picks it up.
Carl needs this because he has Node, Ash, and it looks like Protoss in his hand. So if he doesn't have a way to put another attribute in the graveyard, that Protoss is going to be a lot harder to summon. And that looks like it's his only real win condition. What? He drew X off the top. I mean, what can you say? He drew Nib X as his 2 draws off of Fua. The Nib probably won't be that impactful.
I think Carl has to ash this Sagi. I disagree about not ashing this Sagi.
I disagree so much on that too. I think it allows yourself to find avenues to lose the game. Maybe he's trying to save his Ash for one of the ritual monsters trying to search Purification after being tributed. I think that's a very greedy line though, especially considering he is under Fua, so I imagine Tavion's going to be doing a more lower to the ground play this turn, but we'll just have to wait and see. Oh my god, my favorite card in the game.
Okay, Carland does not look too hot. The thing is that Tavion has to play low to the ground, and I think he might pick the X or the Ash. It's one of the two. I don't see any other card, and now it's the Ash. That Ash that should have been used, actually. That is the extra punish. That's the
only
cherry
thing
on top.
is, I do think it worked out better in Carl's favor not ashing, because if he did ash that Talents would have taken away the X from his hand, and I did see that Tavion had Fuelos in his hand, so that guarantees him an X turn with a weak hand. And you know that your opponent cannot play already, so they have to top deck a starter, because Star and Node don't combo together, and then you just have to beat Nib. And when you have a known Nib, especially playing Mitsugiri Pure, it's so easy to beat. So I think it actually benefited Carl holding that Ash Blossom, even though us, like, as the viewers, do believe it was incorrect to not stop it.
Buying him an extra turn. That is...
Yeah, but sometimes playing to not lose is not enough, because that seems like a playing to not lose line instead of a playing to win.
Because if you pitch the X, Carles suddenly no plays.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, he could have put him on top deck, but you see how important was the prayers. Tavion would have, like, this game should have rolled in such a different way. Carl
like,
should
that
have
talent
Ashed
would probably
Sagi.
drawn too. Like, realistically, that's the big difference makers. If he did Ash Sagi, there was a high possibility that Talons would have drawn too, and then he gets to keep all of his information private, so Tavion can't make the appropriate board. Like, now knowing he has X, it's probably easier to just end on a field where you don't care about any of your monsters on board.
We see how the Mitsurugi ritual is actually, like, the Mitsurugi mirror, is actually able to respect Chammis a lot more. Like, you see that under Fua, now he doesn't need anymore to special summon from the deck. He doesn't need to special summon from the extra deck. The setup that Tavion is going for is Trap plus Futsu, and if he has a quick spell on top, then that works out in his favor.
I believe he has the Mitsugiri trap card, and I think he has another counter trap card. It looked like he had one in his hand, which would be surprising considering he was siding believing to go second, but he could have just made the assumption knowing the way Carl's deck was built after the first two games and do something risky and kind of do a half side where he sides in cards that are good going first and second.
The set monster, it's kinda interesting. That spikes my interest. Also asking your opponent for, like, at the end phase, your end again. Sounds kind of crazy. Carl is such a nice
crazy,
person.
but they both seem like good players. I know both of them, not extremely personally, but I don't think it was any issue. And in that situation where, like, all my cards are known, I don't think there's anything wrong with showing them. I mean, you could, like, it's not your responsibility. It is no longer your right. But I don't think there's anything wrong with doing it from either side.
Now, Link 1, Link 2. This has to resolve. You don't need to do anything here. Just let this, like, just let him do it.
Yeah. Going back to the set monster, it could have to do with the time and the fact that Tavion's a little scared of just taking damage. The only thing is, I feel like it makes you more inclined to get Excitoned, which obviously prevents you from taking damage, but losing so many cards to it, I don't know, would be ideal. So there has to be a specific card that he may want in the graveyard, like a Night Sword Serpent or something.
Also here, Tavion is, like, also here, Carl is always negating the Futsu, 100%. Chain Futsu.
Yeah.
Special Summon Sagi. That's a good play.
The thing is, this is just so much follow-up right now for Tavion. And he'll probably be forced to just use one of the back row, at least when he commits the sword. Ideally, he probably wants to hold the Purification, but it all depends on what his last set back row is, because if it is something like a Solemn Strike, he could use his disruptions a lot differently because he'll force his opponent to go into an XYZ.
Tavion did not pay 800 during the previous turn with his prayers?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But I don't believe it to be strike, because if it was strike, Tavion would have just strike the summon of X, or at least that's what I personally would have done. Yeah, because the effect's going to get chain blocked.
Yeah.
You know, every card except one, you put him on drawing another live card for turn, you have Purification for it, he passes turn, you win. So This is an interesting Amino in my opinion as well. Yeah, because you know he has a card like Nib that he can just discard out of his hand. It probably won't get an insane amount of value this turn, just because the Rizio cards do accrue so much advantage just off for one card.
I like this. I think this is fine. Tributing.
Yeah, I think you're forced.
Back.
You're 100% forced to do something when they commit two bodies, because they just threaten Detonator right here, which starts forcing too many cards.
Yeah, it's too much. Like people might think about an Excitonite. The Excitonite is never the issue because we have the trap. What's actually an issue is the trap, like the Detonator, because Detonator here forces a lot. Like Detonator here deals with like everything.
It deals with 2 to 3 cards depending how you choose to respond, and that honestly, for a body that stays on field and allows him to do damage, is really, really big because it didn't cost him anything. He has ice in his hand still for free, so like he's back up to the same amount of cards he had when he invested the X. So like if he didn't blow up the field right here, I think there would be a chance for Tavion to lose the game right there on the spot.
Now here is another thing, right? Like now he has to trap whatever Carl is gonna use as normal summon. If it's ice, you counter it. Like you have to trap it. Like you have to stop it. You do have to stop it, unfortunately. Node. Okay, I mean node effect, and now you have to stop it, I think.
Yeah, I think you have to stop it, but this is one of those things as well, where you're going back to the talents, where taking the Ash was risky, because leaving X in his hand made Node an automatic extender, which means it turned one of his dead cards into alive ones.
But again, like, from Tavion perspective, he's winning this game. Like, from Tavion perspective, this game is over.
Yeah, I don't think anything is a full misplay, it'd just be more like a slight misstep. The only thing is this card right here, after everything's been used, and unfortunately I have seen this clip already from the YCS, but resolving flag right here.
Normal summon flag, by the way.
Yeah, normal summon flag of everything. Like, Carl did play into the board very well. This was one of the very few cards that was left in his deck that could win him the game. And there you go, Tavion taking a look, reading the card one more time just to make sure he knows exactly what's about to happen.
And this is the card that, in my opinion, is going to change the format.
This is definitely something that'll make going second with Malice a lot harder.
I mean, Malice was like... Malice got a lot better in going second, but the deck still struggles a lot. Like, if we have to compare again, like, Ryzel and Malice, I think Ryzel plays way better going second than Malice. Talking about going first, obviously, Malice plays way better than Ryzel, in my opinion. Even though X is a custom card, but 2-card combo Malice plays through 3 entrap, 2-card combo Ryzel can still, like, lose to 2 entraps.
Yeah, and another thing is X is such a good board breaker while being a starter, because it helps you break your opponent's board while giving you guaranteed plays and then a guaranteed play after it as well, where there's no card like that in the Malice deck whatsoever. And that is why you said, like, X is a custom card, not just going first, but going second as well. The versatility of the different targets you have to send to the graveyard, depending on what situation you need, makes it so, like, that deck benefits a lot from going second. And it could possibly, and this is something I've thought about, focusing more into the blind second version that was not necessarily going around, but the Utopia double, something similar to that, where you just kind of charm your opponent and then just beat them with a bunch of advantage level 4 cards.
And now, unfortunately, from Tavion, there is no much he can do, actually. Like, he can reborn something. No, he can't even reborn because everything is dark.
And the thing is, he has no out for the Protoss either. It's just going to be able to call dark first action next turn.
Yeah, there is
like,
no
even
out.
If he decides to bring out Amino in the draw phase or the standby phase, the Protoss is just going to live because it can't be destroyed by card effects. And this is how we were saying that Carl really put in a lot of time into learning the intricacies and the ways he wins and loses games and how to fix his deck in order to win more of those games.
He's setting one. I'll probably just get rid of the flag because now flag is gonna search again. I think he saw the Eschatos, right? So now flag
we saw the Eschatos last game, so Flag just searching again. Tavion may not realize that Flag is a once per turn search instead of a on summon search. I just don't think this is ever enough. Like he's accruing advantage here, which is fine. But there you go. He uses Protoss effect, calls Dark, and like we know he has Ice in hand, so this just ends the game.
Impulse, and yes. Oh, that was a huge misplay. Adding back the trap with Impulse set.
Oh, yeah. But the thing is, the trap got banished, so I think he got
never
greedy.
mind. Yeah, he got banned.
Yeah.
But I mean,
He had to do it early because of the Proto, so
Yeah.
it made his Impulse worse.
Yeah.
That's another thing. The Ryziel deck makes cards like Impulse, which are supposed to be so strong into the format because of cards like Mitsugiri Ritual and all the mouse.
Then I think it was not a misplay. I mean, to be honest, it doesn't matter. Tavion was always losing here.
Protoss was just the killer.
Yeah. And I think this card will change the format. I think this card is... What's next? I think Malice is gonna get definitely worse in the format because of Protoss. Like, imagine one rank 4 established and the game is over. Like...
Yeah, if they have a card banished and they go summon Banshee, the game just ends if you're a Malice player. You're not going to be able to out the Protoss unless you have a Druisworm in your hand, lucky enough, and you can chain it just to out the Protoss in that one instance.